Rich, this was a horrible idea to join the watch. We're on this wall freezing our balls off, man. Why'd we do this?
I don't know, man. This is miserable. But I did sneak these headphones in so we can listen to this Pod Bros exclusive.
Oh, I feel warmer already.
What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Sean.
And we are speaking the language of bromance. And Sean, today we're going to talk about something that I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole. And so today, you know what you and I are going to do?
What are we going to do, Richard?
We're going to hack the planet, Sean.
What? All right, let's do it.
Hack the planet. Let's pump up the volume.
Pump up the volume.
Play some war games.
Pump it, jam, pump it up. About to hack it up.
I'm going to list, I don't know how many other 80s references I can in here. Well, no. Hackers was a 90s movie. Pump Up Volume was a 90s. Damn. I screwed myself.
You're old.
You're old.
I know.
Anyway, so I was looking into a story about the emergency broadcast system was hacked to say, and it was hacked in like three different places, and the same broadcast happened in these three places, and it was that the dead are rising from the graves and people need to find shelter. Sean, this was an emergency alert broadcast about a zombie apocalypse.
Well, if it's anything, so not to dive too deep, but to tell a story about like any kind of emergency broadcast. So, we had some rough weather recently.
Yeah.
And weather, wind's bad, and you hear those tornado sirens go off. What do?
Throw your wife outside.
Yeah. Say, stop it!
Yeah.
Wrangle it like that one folklore dude.
Yeah, you use it to appease the storm gods.
Yeah.
Take the girl!
No, you're supposed to go to shelter. On two different occasions, Richard. So the time it just recently happened, I hear the sirens go off. So, we got that emergency broadcast like, oh my God, you need to go to shelter.
You don't have a basement, do you?
No. But we got like an interior room. So I'm like, Tiffany, get up. Let's get the dogs. I think we need to go into the interior room. And she's like, because she was sleeping. So she was kind of like a zombie. She's like,
And you're like, oh God, the sun starts.
That's what the siren means.
Kill your wife.
And I'm like, well, the tornado sirens are going off. And she's like, oh, is that a bad thing? Maybe.
You see, you should have just made something up. You should have been like, honey, it's the siren. She's like, well, what's that for? Well, that's to signify the start of the purge. Bang!
But the other time when the storm was coming, like I looked outside and one of the trees that we had planted earlier that year was like all the way touching the ground. So I'm like, shit, we got to get downstairs because at that time we had a basement. Same thing. She's like, I'm like, we got to get downstairs. I think there's a tornado.
And you're like, oh God.
It's the purge. Bang.
Appease the storm gods. And that's how I got a new wife.
So I tell that story just like if the emergency broadcast kicks on and says, oh my God, the dead are walking, my wife's just going to go,
yeah. And that's going to be a problem for her and probably you. Because I think if it comes down to it, I think you'll be like, here's what'll happen, okay? So you'll see that, and then you'll be like, oh my God, honey, we have to get up. And then she'll be like, and then you'll grab something heavy to hit her with, and then you'll be like, oh, I can't do it. I love her too much. And so then she's gonna kind of come to, and then she's gonna be like, were you gonna hit me with a fucking bat?
No.
And then you'll be like, no, this is for defense against.
Happy Valentine's Day.
It's March. Oh, Happy Pie Day. That's not a pie. Happy purge. Whack. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think my first reaction would be that it's a hoax.
Yeah.
Like if I would first hear, if I'm sitting there and I'm watching television and all of a sudden the emergency alert system comes on and it tells me that the dead are rising from the graves and this, that, and the other, my first instinct is to think it's a hoax.
Yeah, I think that'd be most people's.
To think that somebody hacked the station.
It's a Walking Dead like bit, like they're trying to promote The Walking Dead.
Right, yeah, it's a commercial for The Walking Dead, and I'm like, wow, they spent a lot on this commercial.
Ellen DeGeneres is on right now. Nobody cuts her off.
Ellen DeGeneres on a Walking Dead commercial.
She was about to dance.
Yeah, it's Thriller. She's doing the Thriller dance.
Because she's a zombie.
Yeah, and that's what they do. That's what they always do. Eat people and break dance.
Yeah, that's how you get away from zombies. You just kick on Thriller on your Spotify and you can get away.
So I went into that story a little bit. Honestly, most of the articles I found are very, very small, almost like blips in the news. There are a couple YouTube videos about it. My favorite one is somebody had taped it as the alert system was coming on, the Steve Wilkos show was playing.
Oh, nice.
So as you're about to find out who the real father of the baby is, then there's an emergency alert that the dead are rising from the graves. And I'm sorry, but I think the people that are watching the Steve Wilkos show at 10:45 in the morning, those are not the kind of people you want to agitate.
Well, I think those are probably the people in that people on that show is like why the apocalypse is about to happen.
Yeah, you're probably right. Okay, so that's where I was starting in, because I heard this somewhere. I think I saw it on somewhere in a social media feed that I saw. Anyway, couldn't find that much information on it, mainly because it was kind of an open and shut thing. But the guy was a technician that worked for a company, and what he did is he basically put out feelers to different television stations to test their emergency alert system as to whether or not he could get remote access.
Was he doing it maliciously, or was he like, that was his job? And
no, he was doing it with the intent to put this thing on there. But the way he did it is the only way I can describe it is like brilliantly stupid, because the way he got in to these emergency alert systems is because the technicians that installed them. So let's say you and I own a radio station, Sean. Guy comes, puts in your emergency alert system because, you have to have that. Your television station, like what happens if, zombie apocalypse breaks out, or, something less common like a tornado.
Yeah.
And
those rarely happen.
Exactly. So guy comes in and he installs it and he says, okay, here's your system. A lot of stations, I guess, just came up to the conclusion like, okay, well, it's in there, so I guess we'll just leave it. So the username and password into the emergency alert system, guess what was set at, Sean? Default.
What was it? Default? Default as the username and default as the password?
Well, I think probably the username was probably, John Smith, and the password is 1234. 12345.
Well, I mean, what year was this?
This was in 2013.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, I was gonna say like if it was like the 80s or 90s, like all that stuff was relatively new. Like nobody password was like, oh, it's my last name with my year I was born. Nobody'll guess that.
No, this is in 2013, Sean. That's when they were just like, oh, well, it's in, so let's just leave it. So this guy figured out which stations had their passwords that they never changed, and then used that as his means of putting out this fake emergency alert broadcast.
So it was an account takeover kind of scenario.
Yeah, basically. And so he did it to these 2 or 3 different places. Montana, there was a town in Michigan. and a town in New Mexico, and I think it was he was about to do one on a town in California before he got caught.
No.
So he was caught and arrested and blah, blah, blah. So like I said, a very open shut case.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a lot of places you really want, like you said, you wouldn't want to agitate people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or just the type of people you don't want to agitate. But this opened up a broader question for me. I'm like, well, how often does this happen? And Sean, this led me to the story that I want to talk about tonight. So the story I want to talk about tonight is only referred to as the Max Headroom incident.
All right.
Now I'm going to refer to some other things that happened of what they officially refer to as broadcast signal interruption. But, that's fine. I'll get into those as we go along. So there's a few different stories that I've found. The story I'm looking at now, I pulled off of Vice. So, Sean, we're gonna go back. We're gonna go way back. I think maybe before you. No, you were born, but you were young. You were a youngin'. I don't think you weren't even at walking speed yet.
I was born in the year 1986.
Oh, so right here. So this is November 22nd of 1987.
Okay, so yeah, I was walking by then.
Okay. Well, I mean, who knows?
Richard, I didn't start walking until I was 5, but I didn't really want people to know that.
Laura!
When's he ever going to start walking? He just sits there, Laura.
All he does is frolic. Walk like a person.
It's okay, Pookie Bear. You walk whenever you want.
I found flowers. Okay, so 9:14 p.m. on November 22nd, 1987.
I like they have the exact time.
They do.
It was a tough day, Junior.
So this happened, Sean, in the windy city of Chicago.
Ah, yeah. The land of magic.
It
and
is.
Hobos.
They're getting better. They're not there when it's cold.
They are. They're just frozen in one spot.
Yeah. It's like that one guy in Scrooge that has little icicles that's frozen.
Yeah.
And
Mom, why aren't all the homeless people walking? They're playing a long game of freeze tag, Boogie Bear. They're not doing very good.
They suck at this. Okay, that night, as usual, Dan Roan, a popular local sportscaster on Channel 9's 9 o'clock news.
Oh, yeah. Local news guy.
Yeah, local news guy. He was narrating highlights of the Bears' victory over the Detroit Lions. It was a 30-10 victory, by the way. And this is 87. So this is like this was like prime time Bears. You know what I'm saying?
That was that would have been a year after they won, because they won in 86.
Right. That's what I'm saying. This is like prime. This is like Jim McMahon and shit like
the fridge,
Ditka, the Samurai.
The microwave, the stove.
No, not the microwave.
There was the refrigerator guy, though, Perry.
Yes.
Fun fact, they named him that because he had 2 refrigerators in his house.
You just made that up. And then suddenly, and without warning, the signal on the television flickered up and out into darkness.
Oh, my God. What happened to my Dan? What was his name? Was it Dan?
Was Dan Roan.
I'm Dan Roan, and I am here to give you the Bears breakdown. Your Bear McMahon goes deep, 35-yard touchdown to the fridge. Who knew he could run so fast? The Bears are the best team ever.
Stop it. Okay, so the signal flickers out into darkness. So you're sitting there, you're watching the Bears you're watching the highlights of the Bears game, and all of a sudden, boom, and nothing. In the control room of WGN TV. So this was like big time. This is WGN. This is like the Chicago station. You know what I mean?
That was the channel that had Bozo the Clown.
Oh, I know. Oh, I loved Bozo.
He was creepy as shit.
I knew a girl. I went to high school with a girl that played in the grand prize game.
Did she win? Because I hear if you lose your soul.
She got to bucket number 3.
Yeah,
it's always 4. 4 was always the one that got everybody. Like the first one always is easy, and the second one they're like, yeah. The third one you kind of have to like gauge it a little. That fourth one, the fourth bucket, that's the one. That's the make or break one.
Is that what you did with your mom's pans? Like you sat them out and you'd always hit the fourth one?
So many people were felled by bucket number 4. That's all I'm saying.
Mom, I can't wait till I go to Chicago and play the grand prize game.
Oh, I never got to go. Okay, so in the control room of WGN-TV, the technicians on duty stared blankly at their screens. It was from their studio located at Bradley Palace in north of the city that the network broadcasted its microwave transmission to an antenna on top of the 100-story John Hancock Tower 7 miles away and then out to tens of thousands of viewers. Time seemed to slow to a trickle as they watched that signal get hijacked.
So Greg and Steve are sitting there in the control panel. All of a sudden it goes to black. Old boss McGee comes walking by. He's like, what the fuck? We can't have Dan go off the air. Dan's our number one seller.
He's out the Bears score. This is 87.
This is during sweeps. You son of a bitches.
It is, too. This is like November sweeps. That's a good call.
Yeah.
Good play. Okay. So a squat, suited figure sputtered into being. Oh, shit, Sean. He bounced around maniacally, wearing a ghoulish rubbery mask with sunglasses and a frozen grin. The mysterious intruder looked like a cross between Richard Nixon and the Joker.
Ah, creepy.
Static hissed through the signal behind him. A slab of corrugated metal spun hypnotically. This was not part of your regularly scheduled broadcast. So, Sean, you're sitting there, you're watching TV, and all of a sudden, screen goes black, and then you are faced with an image of a spinning piece of corrugated metal, and in front of that stands what you can only think to be one of the bad guys from Point Break.
So that acid trip just kicked in.
I know. See, that's the other thing. Like, imagine people that were high watching the news, and all of a sudden they're like, oh God, oh, this is how bad trips start. Oh, honey,
somebody hold my hand and give me a brownie.
Get the adrenaline shot out of the drawer. The time has come. It's one of those kind of highs. So a guy in a mask wearing sunglasses is like doing this, bouncing around in front of the camera, and there's a spinning piece of metal behind him, kind of like to give you this hypnotic effect, okay? Finally, someone switched the uplink frequencies, and the studio zapped back to the screen. And there was Roan at his desk in the studio, smiling at the camera, completely dumbfounded, as most sportscasters can be.
No, I said, duh, Bears.
Well, if you're wondering what's happened, he said, chuckling nervously, so am I. So this happens how long does this last? Sounds like a few seconds, less than a minute. And then it just cuts back to normal air. And then he's like, my
acid trip just kicked in.
So he's has hands planted on the desk and he's wide-eyed like, oh my God, oh my God.
Oh God, oh God. Dan, we're live. Oh God, I'm dying. Oh God. Dan, come to. Say something, Dan. Oh God. Oh.
This is how it starts.
The Bears.
Doris, get the adrenaline shot from my desk drawer. Within hours, federal officials will be called in to investigate one of the strangest crimes in TV history. A rare broadcast signal intrusion with no clear motive, method, or culprits. It may as well have come from another dimension.
Stranger than like Who Shot JR? Because that was pretty strange.
I don't think that was strange. That was riveting. And I'll tell you what, you were around the 80s, but that was a deal. That was a deal. Who shot JR?
Yeah, you know what it was too? It was a dream.
Oh, neat.
we fucked ourselves, guys. We wrote ourselves in a corner. What do we do? Dream sequence.
Yeah. Tell that to the cast of Lost, okay? Anyway.
That's why they all have drinking problems.
Too many clued in TV viewers that night. Oh, too many clued in.
They had 2 men tuned in that night. It was sweeps. They weren't doing very
It's an
well.
awkwardly worded sentence. To people clued in that night, the face of Max Headroom would have been unmistakable. The world's first computer-generated TV host, as he might have proudly boasted. So Max Headroom, for those that aren't in the know, much like people that aren't, young, people that are basically younger than 28. Max Headroom was a character played by, I have the actor's name. I don't have it. Matt something.
It was like Matt Furham or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. But he would go and put on all this makeup, and then they'd have these backgrounds drawn in behind him, and it was like a talk show, but he was the story went that he was this computer generated talk show host, and it was done in very like war games kind of motif.
This was the guy from Back to the Future, right? When he's in the future cafe type thing, and like the servers.
No, it's Ronald Reagan, but it's kind of done. It's done in that kind of style.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
The face is Ronald Reagan, but it's that kind of style.
You will have a Pepsi.
Yeah. He was a sharp-tongued character inaugurated in 1985 as the VJ for a British music television show. His sarcastic wit and stuttering delivery, along with the ad campaign for New Coke, a late-night talk show on Cinemax, and a few TV specials, has made him a cult personality even before he finally earned his own hour-long TV show in the U.S. Max Headroom, which featured the exploits of a TV journalist living in a dystopian future with a digital alter ego in the form of the title character, debuted on March 31st in 1987. In Chicago, Illinois, it aired on ABC affiliate Channel 7 and would last for 11 episodes and into a brief second season that fall before it was canceled, beaten in the ratings by Miami Vice. And, fucking Miami Vice was a monster.
Yeah, if you're going to lose, you got to lose to Miami Vice. Did Miami Vice take place in the 70s, or was it a part of the 80s?
No, it was the 80s.
Was it set in current 80s?
Yeah, it was set in the 80s. Look at fucking Don Johnson's jacket. Tell me that's not the 80s.
I don't know. 70s and 80s run together. It's all old people stuff.
I hate you. I hate you so much.
You were barely alive in the 80s,
My parents had the soundtrack on vinyl, and I played the shit out of it.
Can you hum a little bit? Can you hum some tunes?
Sean, you know what song was on the soundtrack to Miami Vice?
Cold as Ice.
No. I can feel it coming in the air tonight, night. Oh Lord.
Was that the intro music to that, or what was Miami Vice's like?
Oh, that wasn't the intro, but it was in the first episode. That song.
I gotcha.
Still, the effect of Max's perpetually skipping computerized face was hard to forget. The result, not of computers, but painstaking makeup and prosthetics on top of comedian Matt Frewer. Max was a dark parody of real-life TV newscasters in a television landscape where news and entertainment were already bleeding into each other. So Max Headroom was the cyberpunk on mainstream TV, imagining a digital world that turned out to be not very far from 1987.
So the original fake news, is that what you're saying?
Sure.
So what do you talk about on this show? Do you remember any of it at all?
Oh, God. I don't. I hardly remember any of it at all. I do remember that it was very, like, especially at the time, it was, I think it was very ahead of its time. I think that if you would have put that show out in, say, 3, 4, 5 years, I think it would have I think it would have very much resonated with the counterculture. I think this show was the counterculture before there was a counterculture. It was the Beavis and Butthead before there was Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like a very like Adult Swim type thing.
Yeah, exactly. By the time the show was canceled, the sarcastic, square-jawed, fake-rendered mug was as well known to cult TV viewers of the late 80s as the Guy Fawkes mask is to people of Twitter today. That's kind of true. He was like anonymous with the Guy Fawkes mask. Like Max Headroom was kind of the symbol of the hacker culture in the 80s.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So
break into your parents' purse and wallet and steal all their money and send it to me.
At 9:16 p.m., just after the faux Max intruded on WGN signal, technicians there, suspecting an inside job, began scouring the building for a possible assailant.
All right, Steve and Greg, this is sweeps. You guys are fucking up. Figure out who did this. So Dan's going to be pissed.
They're just basically, so you just see guys like just running down the halls of the television station, looking to see somebody in a mask that's like slowly putting it in a bag like, oh, you caught me.
Gladys is walking around the corner with the mail and they run into her. Was it fucking you, Gladys?
Answer me, bitch!
It wasn't me.
I just went to get Ron's adrenaline shot. He's freaking out.
I think he has a drug problem.
I think he did too much coke.
I mean, I know he was drunk and high during the Bears game, but, we've moved on.
So almost exactly 2 hours later. So this is in the same night, Sean. The exact same night.
Yeah, so like you don't find anybody there. You're like, okay, well, it's sweeps, so maybe we can sweep this under the rug, right? Couple seconds.
Yeah,
Dan's coming back on for his next sports recap.
Yeah, it's less than a minute, and so they're just like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're fine. I guess we're okay. We're gonna bring in the feds. We're gonna dust for prints. We're gonna start taking names. We're gonna figure out who pulled this shit. Because the thought at that time had to have been there was somebody in the building. Like somebody cut a wire, plugged it into something, and was like, now I own the television station.
Now I'm a TV star. Look at me.
So 2 hours later, at around 11:15 p.m., Channel 11, the PBS affiliate.
Oh, well, fuck them.
I don't knock PBS. PBS is amazing. Don't you disparage the programming on PBS. You know what shit they had on PBS? Sesame Street. You know what else was on
Barney.
PBS?
Power Rangers.
Power Rangers was not on PBS.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Maybe I just associated the shitty like graphics with PBS.
Power Rangers was on Fox. Yeah, it was. Power Rangers was on Fox. PBS had Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, Captain Kangaroo, and then at night, Sean, they had, okay, you know what's on PBS right now? If you turn on PBS, well, not right now, but if you turn on PBS at night, you know what they have? Sherlock.
Yeah, I know Tiffany lets Jacoby watch like all the cartoons they have on there. They've got like Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood.
Yeah. Caillou, and that one's a bit weird. But okay, so when I was a kid, and I totally remember this, when I was a kid on PBS late at night, you know what show was on PBS late at night, Sean? Doctor Who.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I think you remember telling me this. This is like you and your dad would watch it, right?
Yeah, my dad would let me stay up late, and we would watch it together. And I do not remember this at all, but this would have been around the time that I was watching it. I obviously didn't get Chicago's feed, but
yeah.
So 2 hours later, at around 11:15 p.m., the PBS affiliate was airing an episode of Doctor Who called "The Horror of Fang Rock."
Do you remember that episode?
I vaguely remember that episode. That was I don't remember who the doctor was then.
What's Fang Rock? Was it like a future dystopia universe where like a dude?
It was like they were aliens, and it was kind of like a Scooby-Doo thing. Like aliens are terrorizing people, but then anyway, when a gargle of static cuts in, So, Sean, you're sitting there, you're watching Doctor Who, and all of a sudden static cuts in. And so
Greg and Steve, they're working the PBS station that night because they got to work extra. And they're like, "Oh God, not again!"
No, Sean, because this is a completely separate thing. The last one happened at WGN, which is like big corporate la-di-da, and this is PBS. So
Greg and Steve, like, they work PBS as pro bono. Like, they go there they take a little extra pay cut. They work the late night.
So they got off their job and just to earn a little bit of extra cash on the side, they do the graveyard shift at PBS. And so they're like, "Oh no, oh shit." A gargle of static.
You don't think they're going to blame us, do you?
So then scan lines, you see, so then it goes, static cuts in, and then you see scan lines indicating the beginning of a VHS recording flashed across the screen. So it's static, and then what you see the lines, like I don't know if you remember this, but a long time ago, Sean, we had these things called VHS cassettes. And when you put them into a device called a VCR and hit the play button.
Vodka, cranberry, raspberry. No, vodka, cranberry, Red Bull, right? That's what you call your
right.
VCR?
Yes.
No, I had a VCR. I remember those. Because I had like a bunch of the old Ninja Turtle cartoons on VHS.
Oh my God. I had an uncle who lived in Chicago, actually, that taped the entire cartoon series on VHS for me.
Wait, is your uncle this Mitch Hedberg guy?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh God, that'd be so awesome if he was.
Is he still alive or
no?
Oh, I was gonna say like on his deathbed now, but unfortunately it was earlier. But he tells she's like, "Richard, I have to tell you a secret.
I was Max Headroom, and I never understood what that meant." I'm like, "No, you weren't."
Until now.
That Mac guy was. That wasn't you.
My uncle was a genius, an evil genius. You go back to his house, he's got like an underground lair where he just would
open up a door, and it's on a little pedestal. There's just a mask, a Max Headroom mask.
It's like the end scene of Batman or The Dark Knight Returns. You walk down into your uncle's basement, lights kick on, and from underneath water, a Max Headburn head just floats up. You are the one that should take over my mantle.
Unlike the previous 30-second hacking, this one had audio, just barely coherent amid the whir of distortion. This lasted for 1 minute and 22 seconds.
So they tried to hack WGN, and WGN had the funds and the corporate power behind it. So
I don't think that was it. I don't think that was it. Oh, yeah, you're right, because somebody had flipped a switch.
But they get the PBS, and they got that like low fund money. They're playing Doctor Who episodes from like 1940 because that's all they can afford to show at that time.
Yeah, Horror Fang Rock. That one happened in like, oh God, early 70s, early mid 70s, maybe.
When the Daleks actually had plungers.
He's a freaking nerd, Max says, in a voice that sounds like a cartoon villain. So this is the guy in the mask. This is him talking. So he's talking in this one. But apparently the audio is very distorted, almost like somebody basically is and I'll try to make sure the video is posted somewhere, either on the site or what have you. But from what I've seen in the video, in the background, you hear what sounds like a whine, like a but he's talking in this one. So the first thing he says is he's a freaking nerd. Then he says, "I think I'm better than Chuck Swirsky, freaking liberal."
Who's that?
Okay, so
I didn't even know they had liberals in the 80s.
So what he's referring to the Chicago Bulls announcer who was then WGN Radio's go-to sportscaster.
All right. Well, this was pre-Jordan too for the Bulls.
Yeah. So it's the same setup. There's this piece of metal that's doing this little hypnotic spin behind him. The metal panel spinning hypnotically behind him was a cheap, clever knockoff of a Max of Max Headroom's bitmapped quote computer-generated studio. Wielding what looks like a rubber penis, the prankster yells the new Coke slogan, "Catch the Wave," and hums the theme to the 1960s Gonzo TV cartoon Clutch Cargo.
So this is like some dude's attempt at YouTubing before YouTube.
Yeah, it really is. This is basically, and I'm saying what's happening. Like, I'm explaining what's happening, and you hear it, and you're like, this sounds completely retarded. But at the same time, like, this guy just hijacked a television station.
Good point.
And he could have put on, at this point, he could put on wherever the fuck he wants. And I'm still like, this is awesome.
Bravo, sir.
Yeah.
Give that guy a government contract.
Your love is fading, he shouts before throwing the phallus on the floor.
Maybe he was just like, the video is him as like when the dildo stopped satisfying him.
So he shouts, your love is fading. He throws the thing on the floor, and then he says, I still see the X. And this is a direct reference to the title of the last episode of the cartoon Clutch Cargo. So then he says, I just made a giant masterpiece for all the greatest world newspaper nerds, he added. This is making an apparent dig at Chicago's television establishment. The call sign of the station, WGN, was an abbreviation for World's Greatest Newspaper.
Okay.
Then the camera cuts out to Max from a slightly new angle. So he's facing off screen and he's bent over. His mask dangles near the camera. His face is off screen and his ass is hanging out front and center. So this guy is side mooning the camera at this point.
Balls out.
Yeah, probably. Well, no, his leg's in the way. So
I mean, the balls are still out,
right. Though. Yeah. And at this point, like I said, this has to be the biggest set of balls you've ever seen in your entire life, if you got to see them. So he says, they're coming to get me, he screams. On the right side of the scream, on the right side of the screen, a woman lazily spanks his ass with a fly swatter.
No, Mom, harder. I want to be a star.
She's like, come on, Pookie, you want to be in show business.
No, this does sound like some dude that like wanted to create a crazy video and talk to his girlfriend and to be like, listen, no, I want to spank you with a fly swatter.
And then
all we have is this used one. That'll do.
Yeah, so like they're sitting there planning this out, and then he's like, okay, and then I'll take my pants off, and then you hit me with a fly swatter. And then she's like, yeah, no, wait, what?
Wait, with a
fly swatter. Yeah, fly swatter. Like, you'll hit me on the ass, and then I'll be like, oh, they're coming to get me. And that's when
and then you'll grab my nuts and squeeze them.
Sweetie, I love you, and I support like anything you do. But I don't know. I don't know how comfortable I feel about this.
Like, I'm all for art and artistic like expression, but this might be taking it a bit far. We got to do what Max Hedberg would do, babe.
He's our muse.
Maybe he talks like him all the time too. So, babe, we got to do this.
Smack me in the ass.
Listen, if you stop talking like that, then yes, I'll do it. Okay, babe.
Call me daddy. So a woman lazily spanks his ass with a fly swatter. He yells, "Come get me, bitch." The scream, he says, the scream then becomes a distorted symphonic drone. So it starts out as like, ah, and then it does that thing where it like kind of synthesizes. So he invented auto-tune in this video. That's what happened. And he's like, baby, And then, just as quickly as his arrival, the signal cuts out, and Chicago was back to the eerie quiet of the regularly scheduled Doctor Who episode.
Oh, damn. You know, some Doctor Who nerds were pissed.
Yeah.
I've never seen this episode.
So the first line that happens, I thought this was cool. When the signal cuts back in, then it cuts back to the doctor saying, "As far as I can tell, a massive electric shock. He must have died instantly."
Nice.
I'm like, oh my God, he was a time traveler. By the time our people began looking into what was going on, it was over. A spokesman for WTTW, which is located about 2 miles to the southeast of WGN, told the Chicago Tribune. For thousands of Chicago residents, it was already too late. The invention of the World Wide Web was just a few years away, but for a few moments that night, thousands of viewers simultaneously caught a glimpse of the first proto troll.
It's kind of the first photo bomb. Even though it's more of a video bomb.
Yeah. This is a hacker who managed somehow to hijack Chicago's broadcast signals not once, but twice in the same night.
I wonder if it was the same video he was trying to put out, but the first one got blocked and the second one got through.
Oh, yeah. You're probably right. It might have been. At both WGN and WTTW, phones began ringing off the hook from confused and sympathetic viewers. For the sympathetic?
No, this guy should get his own show. You canceled him after 1.5 seasons.
Listen, I've had my ass spanked with a flyswatter a few times, and I can just say she was doing it totally wrong. Like her heart was not in it at all.
The poor guy. Look at him. All he wanted to do was be spanked on live TV.
Like, he's begging for it. He's like, "Come get me, bitch." And what does she do? Like, she puts no effort. She half-asses it. I think she should be fired. Fire that person. For the next
the best review ever for the 2-minute episode of dude hit in the ass with a fly swatter.
For the next few days, the tale of the hack went viral. Local newspapers and newscasts covered the incident.
Oh, God. Viral being like 3 weeks to get it in a newspaper and printed.
Well, viral being like, yeah, it's in newspapers and it's on, like, you know, the local news and whatever.
Yeah, so you have to explain VHS. You'd almost have to explain newspaper to kids these days.
Yeah.
It's that annoying thing in plastic that gets thrown in your driveway that you just throw away.
That you use to change out your rabbit cage. Local newspapers and newscasts covered the incident with a mix of suspense and bemusement. The Tribune's headline was, "Powerful video prankster could become Max jail room." Oh, that's clever.
Oh, nice.
Oh, look at that.
Somebody signed off on that headline.
WGN made it their top story and titled it "TV Video Pirate."
Gar.
I got so upset that I wanted to bust the TV set. A man in a jacket and tie told the reporter. One young woman, apparently a fan of Doctor Who, was unimpressed.
"I lost 2 minutes of Doctor Who I'll never get back."
She said, "We're going to have to tape over it." That's in quotes, by the way. "We're going to have to tape over it." That's in quotes. So she's
what's funny is like,
he's like, so somebody had hijacked the television station and pirated out their own signal. I know, I have to tape over my favorite episode.
yeah, you know what? I bet it's almost like baseball cards. I bet you find some of those people that had that tape and taped over it. And like, I bet if you look at that YouTube video, I bet there's millions of hits. I bet somebody's making money off of that right now.
The video I saw has, hang on, I'll look for it. The video I watched has 5.4 million views, Sean.
Jeez. And how much do you make per million on YouTube on average?
It goes by your number of subscribers. This guy doesn't even have that many subscribers. He only has like 3,300 subscribers. But even just off that, he probably made $100,000 easy.
I take it. That's a good year of work.
Yeah, because because basically you just had to figure out, like somebody hands you that tape, you figure out a way to transfer that tape into an MP4 and upload it to YouTube, and boom.
Cash money.
We're going to have to tape over it, she whined. An older man compared the incident to a hooligan throwing a brick through a window.
I mean, nobody was hurt, and there's like no, besides the dude's butt.
A young boy who was asked about the incident said, very, very funny.
Another old man said, this is worse than the Holocaust.
Fake news. This is where comment trolls start.
I give it a thumbs down.
Dislike. I will not be retweeting this. The government was unamused. Officials from the FCC, the agency responsible for regulating America's airwaves, pledged to track down the mysterious culprits and bring them to justice. The
U.S. government's like, nobody fucks with the British but us.
Agents from the FBI Chicago field office would soon join the investigation. I would like to inform anybody involved in this kind of thing that there's a maximum penalty of $100,000 and 1 year in jail, or there's a maximum penalty of $100,000, 1 year in jail, or both. This is from FCC spokesman Phil Bradford.
Phil Bradford is on the case. Phil Bradford shows up at WGN. It's like, all right, what TV did this show on? Pulls out a magnifying glass and looks at it.
All of them.
Well, that's a lot of TVs. This shit wouldn't happen if you kids didn't make this TV and stick to your radio programs.
All your damn kids with your fucking
color TVs,
with your color TVs and your Wally and the Beeves. All in all, there are some who may view this as comical, but it is a very serious matter because illegal interference of a broadcast signal is a violation of federal law. Apparently, this law was new, prompted largely by a growing fear among communications experts and law enforcement officials. At the time of the Headroom hack, broadcast signal interruptions were considered a rare phenomenon limited to small stations with lower power transmissions and requiring special knowledge and equipment that was estimated to cost up to $100,000.
Whew. So basically, if you do it, you're going to get like 1 year in jail and possibly like $200,000 in debt.
Yeah.
It's $100,000 to buy some equipment, $100,000 for the fine.
But the prospect of a new form of pranksterism or protest or even terrorism began to emerge a year and a half earlier. So we're going to take you back to April 27th of 1986. That night, HBO aired The Falcon and the Snowman.
Oh, great flick.
Yeah, never seen it.
I think it's like a Skinamax type movie.
No, this is based on the true story of an American intelligence contractor who sells secrets to the Soviets. Oh, if you're red, you're dead. At around 32 minutes past midnight, the screen flickered into color bars with a message superimposed on top. And the message said, "Good evening, HBO from Captain Midnight. $12.95 a month? No way. Showtime and Movie Channel beware."
Holy shit, $12.95 a month? Was it like $30 a month now?
It was $12.95 a month, yeah, for HBO. And this is $12.95 a month. Think about this, Sean. $12.95 a month that you're paying for HBO. And this is without HBO Go. This is without a DVR. This is in...
Holy shit, yeah, it's only $14.99 a month through a cable provider. I think HBO Go is like $10 a month, isn't it?
Yeah, that sounds about right. No, I think HBO Go's, yeah, like $10.99 or something like that.
$14.99, yeah. So it's like $13 a month back then. It's $15. Yeah, I understand this. I'm behind this guy. That's expensive shit.
Lasting 4.5 minutes, the message from Captain Midnight was America's first known broadcast signal intrusion. HBO executives refused to publicly discuss the incident in a protest of the network's recently announced price hike.
Oh, this is like Netflix.
And experts worried that the hack Experts worried that the hack might determine a dark future for broadcasters, for the country's satellite infrastructure, and for the viewing public. In the wrong hands, this new form of jamming would be no laughing matter. Within days...
Fools, the trick's on them because Max Hedberg.
Within days, FCC investigators found Captain Midnight. He was a satellite technician named John McDougal.
Wow, that's a stupid name. No wonder he changed it.
Yeah? I'd like to be tried as Captain Midnight, please. His mistake had been to use a relatively uncommon text generator program to display the text on screen, a clue that led FCC investigators to McDougal's employer, Central Florida Teleport, a satellite uplink company in Florida. At the end of his night shift, McDougal flipped the dish in the direction of the satellite that carried HBO Galaxy 1 and broadcast his message, overpowering the network signal. He explained to investigators that he was frustrated at the network's rising fees, which hurt his other businesses selling satellite TV equipment. After pleading guilty to charges of transmitting without a radio license, a violation of federal law, McDougal paid a $5,000 fine and served a year of probation.
That doesn't seem like too bad of a deal. I mean, if you played it right, I'm sure you got to do a lot of like speeches and stuff on it. I'm the dude that hacked HBO.
Yeah, I hacked HBO. And yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, even in the 80s, I mean, $5,000, I mean,
that's a good chunk of change.
It's a chunk of change, but it's not,
It's not no $12.99 a month.
There was some ambiguity in the case, specifically about whether the federal misdemeanor charge made against him was applicable, because he, in fact, did have a license to transmit because of his job, but obviously he wasn't supposed to be doing what he was doing. The law was put to the test after another incident a year later, some 2 months before the Max Headroom intrusion. And so the Captain Midnight thing happened. Then Congress makes a law making satellite jamming a felony.
Oh, damn.
So then a year after the Captain Midnight thing, in September of 1987, Playboy TV was hijacked.
Wait, they had Playboy TV back in the 80s?
In 1987? Yeah, probably.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Well, I mean, you go to the hotel, they had the porn channels at the hotel in the 80s, late 80s.
Yeah, but I didn't realize that was like a paid channel. I mean, I guess they have all the sex channels that like you turn to on cable and they'd be all scattered.
Yeah.
And if you watch long enough, you might see a boobie.
Yeah, you grab on the rabbit ears and like you stick your hand out like 40, like stick it out and then turn it like 45 degrees up.
And you have to, no pants, and you have to rub it on the cantaloupe.
Take off one sock and then you can totally almost see a boobie. See,
kids, that's what we had to do back in the day.
Yeah.
National Geographic swimsuit edition from Sports Illustrated.
The encyclopedia.
Yeah.
So Playboy TV was hijacked with text messages telling surprised people at home to repent and find Jesus.
Because
so So here's what would happen. So guys,
somebody found Jesus that day.
He's watching Playboy TV, doing what we all know he's doing when you watch Playboy TV.
He's already ashamed of himself at this point.
And then he sees this, and then he's like, Mom? Did Mom just hijack Playboy TV?
Yeah, his mom died like 2 weeks earlier. Like, this is the first time he's done it in a long time. Super depressed. He's like, I just got to do something. You should find Jesus.
Oh, God, no, Mom.
This is the one thing that was mine.
I don't want to make Jesus cry. The FBI identified the hacker as Thomas Haney, a technician employed by the Christian Broadcasting Network. No shit. No, this is the fucking 700 Club people.
Wasn't that on PBS?
No, that had its own separate channel thing.
Oh.
Haney was caught and convicted under the new satellite jamming law and sentenced to probation. Probably because they're like, oh, well, I mean, you know what this is? You know what that is? That's discrimination. That's profiling. You gave the guy probation because it was Playboy TV. The guy, the other guy interrupts fucking a movie on HBO and it's like $5,000 fine.
Well, I mean, I guess both were paid channels. Yeah.
The FBI report on the Headroom incident, which the reporter obtained, was written by Dr. Michael Marcus, who was then the assistant bureau chief in the FCC's Field Operations Bureau and lead investigator. He was an expert in the mechanics of TV hacking and radio transmission technology. He joined the FCC in 1979 and was instrumental in proposing and developing policies for advanced radio technologies. Before he retired in 2004, he braved industry opposition to help the FCC unleash technologies like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on the commercial spectrum. He was also instrumental in catching Captain Midnight and the Playboy TV hacker. Experiences he remembers with equal doses of relish and disgust, as much for the bureaucratic challenges involved as for the lunatic hackers he was after. To Marcus, who now
that's pretty harsh. Lunatic hackers?
Yeah, they put that in quotes. So apparently he said lunatic. To Marcus,
these goddamn lunatics.
He now runs a telecom consultancy in Washington. The Headroom hacker was still, quote, a bad guy and the one that got away, but it wasn't his fault. I don't know what that means. The head man in Chicago at the time, an FCC investigator whom he wouldn't name, said, "What am I supposed to do?" I said, "You have the video. Go to the place where you think it was filmed." To find a signal hacker, it helps to start with a physical location, to know from where the hijack began, and that requires knowing the path.
Because that's typically a bedroom or somebody's home. I think the signal started from here. Is this your house, sir? Yes, it is. You're under arrest.
Why do you have
Why
do you have a piece of corrugated metal spinning around in the background? I like it.
Coincidental. That's coincidental evidence. You
it's
can't.
Art.
That's. I've seen Night Court. I know how this works.
To spread their signals across a city, local TV networks first relay their signals from their studio to a high-powered transmitter on top of a tall building. The connection between the TV studios and the transmitter is called an STL, or Studio Transmitter Link. In the case of the Max Headroom intrusion, the theory is that the hacker managed to overpower the microwaves of the STL, which was vulnerable to attack on a frequency that wouldn't have been hard to find, as they were being sent to receivers atop the John Hancock Building and Sears Tower. The intruders would simply had to switch on their transmission equipment at a high enough location, probably a high-rise apartment or a roof, at a place between the two studios and their downtown transmitters. So basically what he's saying is, as long as you can, if you get high enough, like on top of a building, and point your equipment at the general area between where the studio is and the transmitter is, then you cut the signal and send it your own.
You could overpower the signal.
Yeah. So since your signal is higher, the transmitter's going to take your signal before the studio.
That doesn't seem very sophisticated.
Well, it wasn't. But at the time, I mean, you got to think, like, television in terms of signal and things like that it hadn't really evolved much past what we were doing in the 60s.
Yeah, but that equipment had to be, well, I guess you said it would take like $100,000 to do that.
Well, it would have taken hundreds of thousands of dollars probably 10, 15 years before that, but who knows? Okay, so a high-rise apartment or a roof. From there, they could blast the skyscraper receivers with high-power microwave frequencies, and by overriding the studio signals, they could trick the transmitters into sending out their own signal. Quote, so Marcus says, "I think the bad guy got close to the receiving end and just transmitted a signal that was received with a stronger strength than the more distant intended signal." So they're saying that he was closer. That helps too. So he's physically closer to the transmitter than the studio. And so Marcus doubts that the hacker was using sophisticated, costly equipment, or that the equipment was even very large, as some said at the time. I don't think it needs to be expensive, he said. Brand new, the gear might have cost around $10,000, but would have been available used on the amateur radio market. There is surplus equipment sold with this capability. I don't think it needed a few briefcases. He said it did need a dish antenna, but if they got close to the STL receiver antenna at the TV transmitter, then a direct TV size antenna might have been adequate. So basically they're using a dish. They could have been using a dish the size of the satellite TV dish that people have out in their yard.
Okay.
And the rest of the equipment could have been, no bigger than a couple than briefcases.
So they could do it on the go. So they wouldn't necessarily have to be doing it from a home.
Right. They could just be, on the roof of a building, and they put the signal out there, and then once they're done, then they just pack their shit up and go.
So they just get on the building like right across from wherever the big antenna thing is, and they just shoot it right from there, so they're in eye distance.
Right. And also at this time, how do you track that? You don't track it. They're guesstimating. This is the theory as to how they did it.
Because I guess it could have been somebody that worked for those two places.
It could have been, but you don't know. While Marcus and other FCC agents worked out the likely technical scenario and then attempted to follow up on tips, focusing on the north and northwestern parts of the city, the FBI carefully examined the videotape. At the very least, the Bureau made photographic prints from it, a capability the FCC didn't yet have. FBI analytics enhanced frames from a broadcast-quality U-matic video cassette, tape copy, video cassette, tape copy of the intrusion. 6 dry silver prints were taken from the video. According to a report of the FBI Technical Services Division, it was noted that a first-generation recording would be paramount for better examination. The location of the intruder signal was one thing, but trying to figure out where they shot the video would fall to the tape itself. It would provide, said Marcus, the most clues to the identity of the culprits, in large part because it was the only evidence the investigators had. So what they're guessing is the background looked to be about 8 feet wide, industrial-type metal, like a roll-down warehouse door. But it was spinning, right? So
that's what you said it was. I mean, it could have been somebody behind there just spinning it.
Yeah.
Those pizza guys, out front of Domino's and stuff like that, spinning it.
Oh, yeah, those guys are awesome. They would have already limited certain places in the city, and one tip sounded particularly promising, one that pointed at a particular person, someone who worked for a company that had a warehouse-like space in the city, a place that might have played host to the video shoot. The tip seemed strong, but investigators had no probable cause, no warrant, and just a hunch. Figuring it out would require going to the place to determine if anyone had seen anything unusual, and maybe in the process stumble upon their culprit or culprits. It had to be someone who knew the tech, maybe a broadcast techie, but there were other techies who could figure it out too. But he said finding the resources and manpower needed to continue the investigation was a struggle, and the FCC investigator in Chicago was too timid to go investigating. Basically, this guy's out, Marcus is out for blood. And everybody's after a few months, they're probably just you know what? Who gives a shit?
Yeah, we're done. Yeah, well, because this is kind of his white whale.
That's a good point. This is this white whale. And he's
I need to find the plastic mask wearing bandit.
Max Headroom is my white whale. Momentum slowed, the case lacked evidence, and the threat felt ambiguous. How are you going to lose sleep over something like that? Nobody died and there's no damage. There were fears at the time about the harm a satellite jammer might do to infrastructure that costs hundreds of millions of dollars, but concerns about regular television signals were much lower. Max Headroom wasn't a danger to public safety or to a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment, so the resources were a lot less. Which, yeah, they're the guy filmed himself on TV getting smacked in the ass with a fly swatter. Aside from some people going, why? I mean, nobody really gives a shit. There was apparently a fake Headroom attack 2 days later, a separate Headroom attack occurred during the 10 p.m. news on Channel 5. This time, however, it was a goofy prank by the program's sports anchor, Mark Giangreco. It's always the sports guys. He spliced the tape from the actual hack into his segment. Did you see the FCC said they're going to analyze the signals and go right to the source and put this guy out of business? The main anchor says snarkily. Those are the same people who spent 10 years trying to make Steve Dahl look nice. The trail had turned cold. While the tale of Max Headroom hacking into 2 Chicago TV stations in one night would be eclipsed by the death a week later of Harold Washington, who was Chicago's first black mayor, the theories began piling up online. The speculation that would eventually reach places like Reddit began on Chicago's bulletin board systems, places with names like Ripco, Overdrive, and God's Country. On Tom's news service, BBS, dial-up modems reacted to the signal intrusion with curiosity and awe and hacker pride. 2 days later, at least one person, someone with a BBS handle, The Chameleon, seemed to know more. So this is transcript from the BBS message board. From The Chameleon, this morning of ABC's World News. This morning, there was a story about all the broadcast overrides. We've gotten WGN, WWOR, and the super station out of Kansas. I believe he said the FCC is looking into how someone could intercept broadcasts. I've studied this for a long time, and believe me, it's not hard, especially overriding superstations. They showed a videotape of what was transmitted. It was a homemade Max Headroom. It was pretty neat. We'll strike again. I can guarantee it.
So he's saying this is going to happen again. So did this ever happen again?
It doesn't look like it.
There's no brash of Max Hedbergs.
Not necessarily from these people. I mean, there's been other cases of what they call signal intrusion.
Yeah, but no Max Hedbergs.
No Max Headrooms. Signal jamming is, and then the story goes into other cases of signal jamming, especially like in the Middle East and the Eastern Bloc, to put out the message of freedom and stuff like that. Then there's a bit about how of some theories as to who it could be. There's actually a few paragraphs on here about there was a big Reddit thread where this guy tells the story about, meeting two people who he thinks were the guys that did it, but apparently they got cleared.
Because he showed up at their apartment, they had a spinning metal thing, and they had a Max Hedberg mask in the corner. They had videotape equipment and briefcases. They're like, hey, you want to watch a videotape? After it finishes, they're like, 7 days.
So the story ends with, for a few precious seconds, life imitated art for a change. How precious is that? It's a small peek beyond the curtain.
How's art imitate life by some guy getting smacked in the ass with a flyswatter?
It says the public saw a rare and endangered animal, an actual dyed-in-the-wool hacker. Something real, something other than the Hollywood nonsense everyone gets pumped full of. They could decide for themselves whether to laugh with this person's gag or to be horrified. So basically, like, he ends the story with, like, this, if you wanted to see what, like, the super hacker culture was in the late 80s, that was it. It was kind of Max Headroom mask getting his ass smacked with a flyswatter.
Lots of time, lots of effort, all for 2 minutes of ass smacking with a flyswatter.
And also, like I said, you might think that's weird. You might be like, why the fuck would you put that on the air? Like, you getting smacked in the ass with a flyswatter.
Well, the answer to that is, like, have you seen the internet these days?
Right? And also, like, the guy hijacked 2 television stations in one night and was never caught.
He could still be out there, Richard, plotting his next hacking.
And the thing that I think is so fucking cool, or not really so fucking cool, but the thing that I would like to know is, or if he's listening, if you're out there, Max Headroom, I just want to tell you, the statute of limitations is over.
Oh yeah.
Statute of limitations ended years ago. You could claim this. You could claim this for yourself.
And we have the forum for him.
Yeah. You come on here and
hello, Richard. It's me.
oh my God, Max Headroom.
I'm the one that hacked. That's a signal.
Hey, before we get started, I just want to tell you, New Coke was shit. New Coke was fucking terrible.
Pull down your pants so I can smack you with the flyswatter.
And that's my closing thought. My closing thought is New Coke was shit, and this guy forever earns a place in my heart as a guy full of awesome. And I don't care if people thought he was weird, because this was like some dude in like his late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, probably early 20s, mid 20s.
And like this was the hacker before there were hackers. This was the hacker before we saw them on television, before they were cool guys with fucking glasses and flowing hair that you see on like crime dramas. That's like, oh, I'm tracing the signal. Oh, I'm enhancing grid 7-9. Like before that guy, they were this, all those guys, they were this guy. And you know what? They still are this guy. I'm going to say that right now. God love him for it.
With your nice Richard's closing thought, let me do a little bit of housekeeping. Visit our website, languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter. We're at languageofbro. Email us at eatthebeaver@languageofbromance.com. Check out the LOB Army Intelligence Reports. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe and leave a review on Google Play Music, iTunes, and Stitcher.
And don't forget to check us on the Pop Rosa Network.
The best podcast site on the internet.
Yeah. Hack the planet.
And if you want to help us build up our Max Hedberg studio, go to our Patreon account.
Help us hack the planet.
It's www.patreon.com/languageofbromance.
Do it. Do it.
All right. Was there anything before I close her out?
No. Nope. We're done. Let's finish.
All right. Well, that's all the bromance we have for this show. I'm Sean.
And I'm Richard.
And I say we eat the beef. Richard is a liberal.
Come get me, bitch.